the button. Hit the blue button.
Welcome to the morning show, gentlemen. Joe's still fixing his camera and getting all ready to go. Cody Collier, how are you, sir? And Joe Tolle, thank you for joining us here on ATV Talk, the morning show.
Yeah, no, I'm doing great, Leonard. Happy to be here. Just got back from a weekend of racing. Excited to go for the Nationals this year.
The Nationals.
Yeah, just excited to go for them. You know, 2 weeks to go. I'm excited for the Nationals. Got a nice little warm up in this weekend.
Nice, nice. You know, Supercross is off and running. We've had 4 races and 3 different winners. And Ken Roczen, up until this race last night, was the points leader. Could you believe that? On a Suzuki that hasn't been changed in what, 9 years?
Yep. Yeah, and with no race wins too, just Mr. Consistent. If I'm getting good podiums, seems like everybody's had a bad race at some point in that Supercross season this year. So, you ended up on the podium again last night. Spoiled for anybody who didn't see it yet, but you got back on the podium again last night with the third. So, staying consistent, staying in that title fight.
Exactly. Let me do a little housekeeping and we'll get into the conversation. We need to thank Elka Suspension for always being there for ATV Talk. They're the #1 leader in ATV suspension. If you check out your UTVs, your trucks, Elka is out there and they're dominating. So get your Elka shocks for your ATV or your UTV today. Antelope Slot Canyon Tours. If you're in Page, Arizona, stop by, take a tour, check out the canyons. You will be mesmerized by how beautiful they are. Those are the guys that are helping us out. You know, Craig Christie and the Blunt family, they also do a great job for us as well. You know, Cody, you and I always have lots of conversations throughout the year, just like Joe and I do. And we appreciate you being here. And, you know, we're going to value your opinion. I'd like to just talk a little bit about the diversity in Supercross right now before we get into our normal, even though it's motorcycles and we're all, I think, fans of the motorcycle races in the Supercross. There's a jam-packed full group of guys that can win. And it's not just, you know, Jet Lawrence and Eli Tomac. You know, Chase Saxton's doing great. Ken Roczen is putting himself in position. Hunter Lawrence and Cody Webb are also there as well. I mean, what are your guys' thoughts so far on how the races are breaking down?
I don't know about Joe, but I've been watching the Pro Motocross and Supercross. I don't know how many races I've missed in the last 10, 12 years of it, but I follow it pretty heavy. No, it's pretty cool having that depth of the field, having 8 guys that could potentially win a race, at least a heat race, if not like a main event, if they get a good start and things go their way. So typically, you only got 4 or 5 of those guys on a good year, so it's really cool to have that depth. And there's a lot of good stories with it. People are having good and bad races. Tomac just can't get a start right now, and that's keeping it from him from, you know, being a podium guy every single race, having come through the pack. So. It's funny how the results aren't showing everybody's riding, but that's just part of the sport.
Do you know what happened to Jet Lawrence in the last moto?
Something with his ankle or knee, just where back-to-back corners. I seen videos of it. He dabbed down his foot in back-to-back corners. He twists his left leg and then he twists his right leg. So I don't know which leg hurts worse or what it is, but haven't gotten heard of any official injury report.
Yeah, it usually takes a couple days for those to come out. Joe, what do you think about the diversity?
You know, I think it's outstanding. I gotta say, you know, even my wife's into it at this point. You know, we're sitting here on the couch every Saturday night and we're cheering and we've got our favorites, but really what's just awesome is that the racing is so good. You know, I started really following the sport I saw clips of dirt bikes in the mid 80s and it's like, wow, that's weird. Those have they don't have dual shocks on the back. I remember that was like my first memory of watching motocross at a friend's house, but I really started following it in 90. And, you know, you go through these eras like Stanton wins and he's going to win most of it. Jean-Michel Bale wins and he's going to win almost all of it, you know. And then when you got into the McGrath era, it was like what, 6, 7 years of nothing but McGrath, which was great because I was a huge McGrath fan. You know, he was just a few years older than me, but if you didn't like McGrath, you might not have liked it. And then, of course, Carmichael comes, steals it from McGrath. I didn't like anyone taking it from McGrath. So those were the dark days of Ricky Carmichael, who I like. I think he's a good commentator. And, you know, I appreciate his contributions now. But back then I was not happy with that man, little troll. But like James Stewart until he became a quitter. No offense, James. Your brother's not. But yeah, I'm with Cody. You know, there's so many guys that can win every week now. It's fun to watch. You know, you can't just be like, I know who's going to win this. You know, what, maybe 20% of the people would have picked, you know, Sexton last night to win.
Yeah, I wouldn't have. I mean, just because I'm not a KTM guy, I would have picked one of the other guys. I mean, I would have figured Jet Lawrence or Eli Tomac would have won it. But Ken Roxon going wire to wire in the second moto, that shakes it up even more. This is a guy that walks around and is disabled.
It's amazing. It's
Yeah, dude,
amazing.
I am such a huge Ken Roxon fan just because of his determination and drive to keep doing it and keep racing at the highest level. I mean, and you could say he's on an inferior machine, but Joe and I have talked about this in depth. The level of testing that they do on that Suzuki and the fact that he's still riding it, obviously he lacks for nothing. You know, I mean, it's a pretty great thing to see his team do the work and put him out there on what is arguably not the best machine, but is showing to be a good machine.
You know, it was two things I want to point out real quick before we leave Supercross behind, and you know, I want to shut up and let Cody get his in because I'd rather hear him than me. Yeah, Triumph got their, I think, is that first Supercross win ever last night? I mean, it's their first in the modern era. I don't know that Triumph used to make a dirt bike unless you go back to what, the 60s or 50s or something ridiculous. That had to be their first ever Supercross win, and that's a bike that's only been out now for what, a year and a third, you know, a little more than a year, and they got to win. And the GM of Triumph North America, interestingly, is Rod Lapuznak. And for those who don't know who Rod Lapuznak is, and he was the guy at Suzuki that a lot of us in the editorial space credit with being responsible for the LTR 450. So, you know, the fact that Rod's over there and they're a new company just getting into it, winning. I mean, it was exciting to see that. It was historical. So,
Yeah, that is pretty awesome that he was out there. So maybe they're going to come out with a sport quad.
yeah, I'll be calling you, Rod. I'll be calling you.
There you go. There you go. Beat him up. Beat him up. Let's make this thing happen. You know, let's transition here a little bit. We all love Supercross and enjoy talking about it. The chat enjoys it as well. But we like ATVs too. And I probably like ATVs a little more. GNCC is starting right around the corner. Cody, this is going to fall right in for you to start talking about. You were out racing. Was it this weekend or last weekend?
Yes, yesterday.
Where was that race at?
We went back down to Low Country, hit the second round of it this year. Down in Neesmith, South Carolina, about 40 minutes from Myrtle Beach. So about a 9-hour drive from the house. That pretty much did that 2 weekends ago. Did it this past weekend. Great event, had a great time. It's a brand new startup series. I hit their first and second ever event. They're learning and growing, and got some good people down there. My one buddy broke Gavin Jenkins, a 4x4 pro. Me and him rode down together, did a little testing on Friday, raced on Saturday. He had a mechanical issue. He had a belt issues. His belt blew apart on him, but he said he broke down, was sitting there, and he's like, I've never had that many people stop and ask me if I needed a water, needed them to stop their race and tell them out. There's really good people down there. So
That's why we love ATV racing, because there's so many people that are like that. Let's back up a little bit. I have never heard of one of these machines having a belt issue. So what's going on with that?
different things cause it. The belts just disintegrate over time from heat and friction. And that race was very sandy. It was kind of a deep, thick sand, so it had a lot of drag on those big 25-inch wheels. So it just burns up your belts after a while. On our practice bikes, we try to get a few races out of them, get more than the good out of them on the practice bikes. And that race, that track, how that sand was set up, just melted your belt just from all the back pressure, all the tension.
But you have any issues?
I don't know if I would have made it another lap. It started. I could hear it slapping inside of my belt cover.
Okay, go ahead,
So
Joe.
my belt started flying apart on my last lap. His happened probably an hour into the race, maybe. Mine happened. Mine would have failed with another lap, I think.
Okay, go ahead, Joe. I interrupted you.
I just wondered if is there any tricks to saving a belt? Because I mean, obviously you're a racer, and but there's a ton of guys out there that ride 4x4 ATVs. If you ride in deep, heavy sand like that, does it change the way? I mean, obviously you ride a little different just because the sand is deep and heavy and it's different terrain than what you have there and up in Ohio. But is there something different? Do you ride the quad in any way differently to try to save the belt in those situations?
Typically, I don't worry about it. Just try to have a fresh belt on there. For the nationals, it's a brand new race belt every single race. For the locals, we'll probably get 5 or 6 races out of the belt before we change them, because they do have, more often than not, they have that kind of life. But if you run them in a really rough race where you create a lot of heat on that belt, back-to-back races, we've had failures on that second race before. But again, that's just for me, the top few 4x4 pro guys are going to have that specific issue in 2 or 3 races. Most people can get half a season out of the belt and not have an issue.
What conditions? Obviously, heavy sand. But other than that, are there any other conditions that you find are exceptionally hard on drive belts?
That's about it. If it's really like greasy mud, like thin greasy mud, and you're splashing a bunch of it inside of your belt cases, and it's not sealed off properly, you can definitely get some slip just from moisture. You can run there's different type of clutches. You have like a hard plastic cover where it's just a piece of hard plastic you're rolling on, and they also have roller clutches that have like ball bearings that you're sliding on, so they dissipate the heat and the friction a lot better, because the independent metallic balls that spin around act as bearings.
So the consumer, when they get on one of these machines, what is their general life expectancy of a belt? Because when I was in British Columbia this year or last year riding the new Gen 3 machine, they said that they had an uncalculable amount of time on the belts in those machines.
Most people do not abuse them like the guys in the 4x4 pro class in the GNCCs. Like, most people are going to get, your average person that's not racing them is going to get 3 or 4 years out of your belt, I imagine. As long as you put it in low whenever you're hauling big equipment, and you're not burning out your clutches and everything. Most people are going to get years out of it. Racers, if you're trying to race at a high level, you're lucky to get to summer break at the highest level. We're struggling to get 3-4 races out of them, just standard conditions.
Because you guys ride so hard.
Yeah, and it's all that hard on and off. We're creating a lot of bind and tension and demanding that belt hooks up now. And especially in the sand where we're coming to a corner, it's a 3-foot sand berm. We're coming into it, and we know it's going to rob a lot of our momentum as we hit it and try to accelerate through it. So we might actually be harder on the belts in those kind of races, because we'll come into the corner and get on the gas full throttle early, knowing we're going to have that drag and trying to like blast through the drag. And so all that bind just creates heat and breaks down your belts.
Right. So, you and I spoke a few weeks ago, which will come out here directly this month. I think it's going to come out the weekend of the first race, um, which is great for you. Uh,
Works
uh,
out.
you and Brandon Fraser had an epic war out there, fighting almost tooth and nail every race. Um, we're rolling into 2025. It's a fresh season, and some of the courses that are coming up, you favor some of them and he favors some of them. What do you think with some of the new modifications or some of the new testing you've done? How do you think that's going to play out in the start of the season for you?
Yeah, I haven't made any changes. No testing on my end. Just personal testing. Just trying different concepts out. Just keep trust my process. Like I've done for all these years, just to keep building on my end. Machine's solid. Machine's great. There's nothing that I want to improve or change on it right now. There's some little things we're working on, but no testing right now. Just concepts and talking to sponsors, getting ideas and things lined up about how to make something better. But we're good to go for the year. I feel good. I feel strong. The testing was good. My buddy Gavin Jenkins in the 4x4 Pro class, we went down and he got himself a brand new bike and he got to shake that down. He's looking the best I think I've ever seen Mr. Gavin Jenkins. He's been working out. He's been training. He seems like he's been eating his Wheaties and got himself in the right mindset. So I think he's going to be really good this year. But no, I feel good. I'm ready for it. Been working out, been eating my Wheaties. But Mike's got the bike good.
You think the Pro 4x4 class it's growing? We saw the results getting larger with more people last year. As it grows and these other riders start coming through, do you think that the Brandon Fraser, Cody Collier race is going to change into a multiple rider race for the front?
I hope so. That's always the goal. Some people don't want that. They don't want the pressure. They don't want people to catch up. But I know that's just the natural way that the sport goes. I'm on the truck ride there to and from the race this weekend, trying to tell Gavin, everything I can to try to help him out, his understanding, his mindset, and how he does things. And we're just having a nice open conversation between two high level racers on how to do things. So
that's cool.
I just always want to be helpful. I want good people around me racing at a high level. And there's a conversation that I actually started at my wedding when we were, having a good time that evening. Just what the difference between a good and a great racer is. Like looking back, all the time things. I think a great racer is somebody that was always able to step up to the occasion, no matter what the competition was. They just happened to be better than everybody else that happened to race at the time. You can drop them in a vacuum with like the whole James Stewart, Ricky Carmichael, Ryan Volpoto thing. Who would step up? So I want to try to be one of those guys that could step up, and the more people I can try to have a better community, have better racing, have a higher level of racers around me. See what levels and heights I can reach.
Right, I understand that. How great would it be if you could go back and get all the past champions together at the height of their careers and race them all together and see how it would all play out?
Yeah, and I work hard to be the best I can be. Me coming on the 4x4s, Landon was the guy, and I worked hard to match where he was at, and I think I elevated it. And Landon, being the great rider he is and the champion he is, he elevated the game to match. And Fraser was coming onto the scene. He was young, and he was learned from us left and right, and he elevated to get to where we were, and we all three kindly elevated the game in different ways.
Exactly. That's the way it's supposed to work. Some of your guys' epic battles throughout the season, what's the most memorable race for you from last year?
Most memorable, sadly, is probably Powerline Park, where I just where I had the eye failure thing. Battled all day, was right there all day, just could never get a position on them. It was just tough for passing with how it was terribly muddy. And with like 2 or 3 miles to go, it was probably a little bit more than that. On the last lap, there's a big bottleneck, and Fraser stopped in the main line. I seen a split, and I took it, and he bulldozed his way through the main line, and I get to the top of the split line, and it's just a wall of quads and nowhere to go. So I had to reverse all the way back down the split line and get back going. And by that time, my eyes had taken so much mud on the inside of my eyelids and everything. My eyes just failed at the end of the race. So I squinted my whole way through the end of that last lap and made it through the finish line. And my eyes just shut down. Had to get them flushed out. It was a whole thing.
Wow, that's I've only heard of that happening to two people. I'm sure it happens all the time. You guys, I can't believe you guys take your goggles off.
It beats not being able to see.
Yeah, but how much dirt do you guys really get in your eyes during a course of an event?
There's so many variables go into it. So a race like Powerline, we've talked so many times before, like in a really muddy event, how the mud from the quads and roost from the quads gets on the tree branches, and those start hanging down on the racetrack, and those start smacking you in the face. So how much mud did one of those leaves scrape into your eye on one hit? How much self roost are you throwing on yourself when the mud's super sloppy and just getting in your eyes and getting on your face? The guy behind you, are you trying to race at all, or are you just like staying far enough back that you're taking zero roost and you just hope they make a mistake?
What's the best concept?
There's passing sections. If you know the track, you know what sections you can pass in, and just trying to give them a gap when there's no passing and know when to charge for a quarter mile, a few corners to close that gap back in for the passing opportunity.
Do you prefer to lead or run second?
I mean, it depends. I don't mind running second. I can pace and be patient. I have no problem being patient, letting the race develop. I like leading. I think I have a good pace. I understand the concept of anybody can it's monkey see, monkey do. And if you're hitting the line a certain way and you get kicked a little bit and they don't, and they start pressuring you because they've been following you for 3 miles and put no pressure on you, and you made one bobble and all of a sudden they're pressuring you, I know that means I'm putting down a good pace. So I don't mind leading. I don't mind being in second. I've been in about every situation at this point, so I'm pretty comfortable in all of them.
I know, because some riders only like to lead or only like to run second to make that surprise pass at the end or close to the end. And it just, everybody's got their druthers, When I was riding, I wanted to be out front. I didn't want to be behind. I liked that feeling of being in control, in controlling the pace, controlling the lead. Granted, I didn't get to do it very often, but at least it was fun when I did get to.
See, I have a really good way of not showing my full hand out on the track, not showing all of my ways that I'm. If I have a section, I'm like, oh, I'm going to gain a couple seconds here from the specific way I'm hitting this, or like the connection of lines I take. That's kind of different. I'll just hit the main line, just rail the ruts, just to not show my hand on that. Definitely don't take all of the best lines if you don't have to. If you don't think the guy behind you knows the best line, if you're in the lead, don't take it.
Right.
Don't save it for yourself. Yeah, and there's a lot of different ways to play it, but then it's a big head game, dude, and you just kind of make your call in the moment, what you feel is right and what you think is right with your experience and your knowledge on it. Sometimes you mess up. You're like, he doesn't know about that line. You go to hit the outside, he blows by you through that line anyway. So you're like, I guess I got that one wrong. But it's just part of it. You make your calls. You try to save some lines for the last lap. If you're the guy in for the 4x4 Pro class, we're first row in the race. So if I get whole shot and I take all of my good lines first lap, all of the tire marks are showing that. Everybody's going to follow it. Now I have 0 passing lines. So I have to be smart, aware of that. So I have to know that I'm kind of creating the race line, and then your passing options are going to be based off of that.
So you don't take the quality lines on the first lap so that you set the course so that you have advantages later.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Do you do the same thing on a 450 as you do on a 4x4?
Very different because it's the last race of the day, for XC1. The main line's been already set by the entirety of the AM race. You can typically get away with a set of tire tracks off the track during the PM race versus doing that during the AM race when there's only a handful of tire tracks out there, so it sticks out more, if that makes sense.
Okay, I understand. Joe, you got anything for him?
And like if you're out front, like and you're talking first lap, I mean if you get into lap two and you know you've got a gap and second can't see you, I mean, do you switch over to all your A lines at that point and just go for the fastest lap times you can get without giving those lines away?
Uh, Again, that's kind of in the moment how I'm feeling. If I'm like, all right, I can gap them right now, and I have several of these lines, and it's also how visible is the line coming into it. So, like, are you braking for a long downhill, and it's totally visible coming into like a bull right hand corner, but like the entrance is kind of zigzag coming in, but I can just come outside 10 foot and just absolutely rail the outside. I might not hit that because it's super visible, but if you're in like a tight wooded downhill and you got like a 180 at the bottom, and I'm able to like it's kind of a weird line that's kind of hidden because of the trees or the dirt or whatever. How easy are you able to adjust at race pace once you see the line coming into the section? Kind of is part of that too.
Okay. So keep the good ones hidden if you can. If you can't, just if you're already gapping the field and you're in the main line, you might as well almost stay on the main line and keep gapping the field, correct?
Yeah, because third lap I might come around that corner and there might be 4 lap riders in front of me. But if I took that line the lap before, one of those lap riders might see that line now because it's super visible, and it's probably a couple other 4x4 pro riders that are smart enough to see that dirt and take that line. Now there's actually like 7 or 8 tire marks in it, right? So now I might not be able to get the most use out of that line for the day.
Right.
Yeah, and then I might also smoke a tree at the end of that second lap, and now I've used up all my passing lines and I'm back in 4th place.
And you gave away those passing lines to the 3 guys in front of you.
Absolutely.
Okay, I get it. So, Cody, you've been riding ATVs for a long time.
20 years. Well, 20 years racing. 20 years racing this year. 22 years riding myself.
Wow. So, how much two-stroke in time do you have?
Oh, limited. I did a little bit in youth. I had a couple Apex, the DRR for a couple of years. I had an Apex shifter. That was the CR80, the Honda CR85 motor that they dropped in one where Apex did all of the AMA legal hybrids.
Okay. So you're not as excited about this new Kawasaki two-stroke that's coming as the rest of us, then I take it.
I'm a performance-based guy. So like whatever's going to allow us to get the best lap times possible. So like the electric, excites me on a performance end. I don't like all the weird sanctioning and legal stuff that's coming with it, and the reason why it's being pushed, at least at like a legal level. Don't like getting into all that. I love the motors. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing better than a good rev bomb. But as far as performance goes, I love the concept of electric.
So you like that new Walsh bike then?
I think it's super interesting. 80 horsepowers. I've never seen a 450 struggle to keep the front end like that thing does. Keep the front end down like that thing does. So it's very cool that we're able to get that kind of performance out of these things nowadays.
Yeah, they just don't have battery life, so I don't think it's going to be a cross-country setup just yet.
Yeah, and the technology is always improving, and they'll get better battery cores and battery cells that hold life longer for less and smaller and lighter, and we're probably 10, 20 years out from having something that makes a lot more sense and a lot more cheaper and all that stuff than trying to do a full motor. But I don't know. I'm just speculating. I love the motors. Don't get me wrong. I love the dual exhaust coming out of the back of that Can-Am, the way it barks. But I like the performance as well.
I think you're onto something. But what I was also trying to get at is Kawasaki's coming out with a new two-stroke.
Yep.
Dirt bike.
A dirt bike, not a quad, but that doesn't mean that Mike Walsh isn't going to take that brand new Kawasaki two-stroke motor and put it in a chassis, to compete with the KTMs that he's built, to compete with the 250Rs, and I believe he built some mini quad two-stroke stuff. Um, but it's something new. We haven't seen something new in our industry or in the motorcycle ATV world in a while yet, other than this electric deal, which I think the electric quad, Joe and I had this conversation, is going to be a great deal on a TT track. Right now, with the way the battery setup is, let's take that thing to the TT races and race them head to head. See what happens.
Yeah, it's just going to walk, I think. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
I was just going to say, it'll probably smoke the gas bikes. If you put the top rider on it, it'll be a walk away, I think.
CJ would be the guy I'd want to put on it right off the start. Or you know what? You better you take a guy that's running in the at the lower half of the top 10, put that guy on it and see what happens. See if he drives him to the front. If it drives him to the front, then you know the machine is working well and it is a dominant factor, because you take and put the fastest guy on there, he's already beating everybody on his race bike, on his gas motor. So you're not changing it up.
But he might be winning by, instead of gaining 3/10, 5/10 a lap, he might be gaining a full second, a second and a half a lap.
Or more.
Or more. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. That thing looked pretty fast to me. Looked pretty impressive. I know it was just on a flat field, and there's not a whole lot to compare it to, but I'm still in the Joe Tolle fan club on this one. Let's open up the baseball parks, turn them into motocross tracks, put the electric quads, the electric motorcycles out there, and get our kids back involved in motorsports or off-road on motorcycles and ATVs. And we can do it in the neighborhood, and we don't have to drive all the way to a riding park. We don't have to, go all these places and do all this. We're right there, just down the street. Boom, there you're riding.
I really like the Sur-Ons, like the whole the dual purpose of them. A lot of families can have them for their kids just as something to play around on, and they can race. I don't know if you've seen the Josh Hill videos of him absolutely shredding them, hitting triples on Supercross tracks with those the battery powered motor like mountain bikes with a Swiss throttle. They're bad, dude. I think that'd be a great way for a lot of people to get into the sport if we open up that class. So they could have it for their personal lives, go to and from school to friend's house, whatever, play around their backyard. They can race that, if the family's not fully invested into the motocross scene, getting the dirt bikes and everything. And it's a nice introduction to the sport on the two-wheel side at least.
Let's bring the throttle back for control.
Have you ridden a Sur-On, Cody?
I have not. They look so sweet, though.
Have you seen one in person?
I have. They raced them at the Turkey Derby, had a Sur-On class, and they were hitting all the triples, scrubbing the tunnel jump. They look very racy and cool.
What size are they? Like, what do they compare to? They're not quite the scale of a full-size dirt bike. Are they more like an 85?
They're closer to a full-size mountain bike with the electric, like a bigger electric motor between your legs. So it might lower the center of gravity, if anything. But I don't know if you could compare it to a dirt bike. I don't know if that would be fair.
It's its own thing. No, that's cool. I mean, I wish more BMX tracks. I mean, a BMX track could let Sur-Ons race.
Yeah, it's the lightest TTR 230 of all time. But the seats cut down way low, super narrow. It's a mountain bike that they hid a motor into.
Okay. All right. Did you go to the Turkey Derby?
I did.
How was it?
It was fun. It was a lot of fun, dude. I learned a lot. I'm not the greatest moto guy in the world. I got my butt kicked a little bit trying to figure out all the flows and just how to clear some things and just shifting points and all that good stuff. Starts are so huge, and everybody on that road was willing to rip the transmission out of their Honda 90 right there to get the best jump possible. So I didn't get a good jump every moto. I was trying to get used to it all, but I had a great time. Yeah, I wish I could get a little better starts in the motos. I felt like my pace was good. Didn't end where I thought I should, but really good fun, really good time, really good event. Everybody was so racy. The pros were fun to watch. The pros bikes were fun to watch. The Surons were fun to watch. The girls class was fun to watch. The 200-pound, the big boy class was fun to watch. It was all just a good time.
How many classes are at that event now?
I'd say there's a dozen or so. You know, they got like A, B, and C, quad and bike, the Suron class, the girls class, they call it like, I forget what it was called, the big boy class, the 200-pounder plus class. They have fun with it. They're always expanding, trying to just create a good culture, good vibes.
Is it a two-moto format or is it a qualifier single main event format?
It's main event format. So, that was for the bigger classes. I was trying to remember. They had motos for the smaller classes where they didn't have to pick and choose, but for your pro class and like I think your B class on the quad side at least, they had to have heats.
Okay, and they it's a pre enter deal, so you have to be pre-entered to go there because you have to enter online.
Yep.
And when it fills up, it fills up. They're not taking anybody at the door, and the classes are generally all full before they get there.
Yeah, no, you know, they only got so many gate spots per class, and they got figured out how they want to do it. And you know, if you don't like how something is, put in a word. They do really good about making it better the next year, but they got a program and system they're trying to stick to year to year.
I think Nick Janus is going to be a promoter in the future because he's taken this to a whole new level. I mean, you take a backyard race and you turn it into what I would consider a national icon. I mean, this thing is awesome. Everybody loves it. I mean, I hear nothing but great things about it.
They put a lot of work into it. The track itself was beautiful and fun and safe, and he did a really good job with just the event itself. It made it look very professional. The whole vendor row, the track, like I said, the track was just beautiful, a lot of fun. You can't really ask for a better motocross track for Honda 90s that still had like skill gaps in it. You know, where you could hit the triple, you could wheel tap into the whoop section. You know, just little things that you could gain times on and still have some depth to the track, but not be dangerous was pretty cool.
I think it's cool.
Go ahead, Joe. Sorry.
I was just saying, I think it's cool that, like, you know, I talked to Doug Couric from Sunstar, and you know, he runs at a GP track here in Ohio, and they have a big like dads on 90s thing going there, like adults racing 90s, and then of course Jeremy Osborne, you know, he does a 90 race at his ATV National. It'll be the last round of this year, and he even says he's going to bring Janusa in to try to make it even better than what it is. It's like the biggest class in ATV racing as far as growth right now is grown-ass men on little 90s, which it's 1970 all over again with the ATC 90, you know, the US 90. Like, we don't care. We'll go. You got a bike, we'll race it. We don't care. You want to build a 450? Cool. Not, we'll race whatever you got. You're not going to stop us.
I've been saying for years they didn't bring pit quad racing or the GNCCs. It's been talked about. They've done an event every once in a blue moon here and there over the years, but I think they need to make it a thing. I don't know how you make it exciting and all that good stuff, but I think that Honda 90 racing is an easy, good publicity to get people into ATV racing in the first place. You get like I don't know what it would be if you could like be like, hey, Honda 90 pit races Saturday nights at the GNCC under the lights. We have a little chicane for them with a couple logs and tire jumps or something. Winner gets an extra point in their class for XC1 and have all the XC1 pro guys out there on Honda 90s.
All the racing at Janutz's, those are all basically stock 90s, right? You're not allowed to modify them, are you?
You're not allowed to. I'm sure a couple people get a little cheeky with it. I've heard of people putting on a different carburetor to dump a little extra fuel into there. But yeah, mine was bone stock, and I believe 95% of people's there is bone stock.
Well, Nick said that he polices that pretty well, and if he thinks it's a cheater, he's kicking that guy out.
Yeah, but there's also like 90s got a little range in their performance. Like they just do, quads do naturally, especially when they're that constricted. It's a little bit more noticeable. So if your carburetor isn't, people will just say that their quad's fresh and the carburetor's totally clean and stuff. And that's, your quad just has a little bit of lag to it.
It's like when you go to the go-kart track where you go do the little rental go-karts at the putt-putt, and there's that one 5 horsepower go-kart out there that's spanking every other one, and that's the one you want to get.
Exactly. And, people just play that game. I don't know. I'm not saying anyone's a cheater. I'm not even trying to hint at it. There's definitely some people that were just greasing a couple of jumps that, like, I was stretching it with everything I had. I no slouch on the quad, and I'm just like, I don't know if it's possible to not risk killing myself over this jump every now and then. Trying to do the big jump, and then it just like they're greasing it with a little bit of clearance.
Really, I mean, I know that when the 250R came out, and it was 86.
Yep.
I think it was 86. Lauren was working with Brian Fuller, and they got the 2 brand new bikes, and they drag raced them multiple times, switching riders, and the fastest bike became the national bike because one was faster than the other, and that's the one that became the race bike, and the other one was the practice bike, and that's just the way they figured it out. And I've heard stories that my dad built 3 identical 185, the ATC 110s built into 185s, and built for these 3 machines, told the guys exactly how to break them in and said, hey, the first thing you guys are going to do is go drag race. One machine's going to be faster, one machine's going to have an oil leak, and one machine's going to do this. And all that they acknowledged, and they all came right back and had, well, his bike is faster, and my bike's got an oil leak, and this bike does that. And he goes, this is exactly what I told you when you left. It would happen, and it seems that all of that is the same in the 90s. You get one off the showroom floor, it's a turtle, and then you get one you get the other 9 or 8 are the same, and you get one that's super fast.
Yeah, it's just funny how it goes. Like my buddy Gavin Jenkins that came down with me this weekend. He's got a brand new bike that we went and shook down Friday. The whole reason we went down to test on Friday is for him to shake down that new bike. And he's like, dude, this thing feels way better, way different than any bike I've ever had. I'm like, well, I know you got the same shocks, all the same tuning, all the same clickers. You have changed 0 parts on this quad other than it's just a new build. It's the same bike that you're used to and know and love. It's just fresh, and you want it to be good. And I don't know if it's purely mental or if it might be one of those things where he's got the best go-kart track out on the track, But
well, freshy bikes are always awesome to ride. I mean, the same exact thing. They're not. I mean, I built Eichner some TRX 450Rs back in the day, and they were identical shocks, identical motors, identical everything. And the motocross bike, or the one bike that we ended up racing motocross on, I hated that bike. I don't know why, but that bike, and it never meshed. I never liked it. I didn't like the way that it accelerated. I mean, and I changed and swapped parts, and no matter what I did, that machine was never the same as the other bike. I don't know why. And they're identical.
Yeah, it's weird how that works. Hunter Hart had when I was riding with him all the time, testing with him all the time. He had a Yamaha 450. He hated it. Didn't steer right. Didn't ride right. He hated the thing. He would always wreck on it at races, and he just had bad vibes and bad results on it. And he finally ended up getting rid of it. But yeah, you'll hear that and see that all the time throughout our sport. Where they're just a bike with bad juju.
It's real. It happens. I mean, there's not always. I mean, you've built enough bikes to know, Cody. There's sometimes there's just a feel on a machine that you don't know what it is. You can't put your finger on it, but that's not the machine. The last year's bike or the new one you just built, that's the machine. And that other one, you got to get rid of it because it's never got the same feel. And I can't put a finger on why that is. So I don't want to change up our great conversation here, but in the chat, it's going pretty crazy about the two-stroke technology and the level of things that are coming up, and the fact that I don't think that there's as much new technology in the two-stroke world as the chat thinks. They did, have fuel injection come out in the KTM, and uh, Panthera has got some stuff going. But as far as two-stroke technology, I don't think it's changed near as much as some of the people think it has. Maybe they're just not as used to the two-stroke stuff as I am.
Yeah, it's like oil injection. That's not new either. That's
No, no. But the fuel injected deal is, I don't necessarily know if that's going to be better on a two-stroke or not.
Mitch
Uh,
Pate. There was a video online on YouTube. Motocross Action went around and talked to a whole bunch of people when the rumor. Well, okay, it wasn't no rumor after they did that little ad last week at Anaheim 2 with McGrath. They went around in the pits and were asking different people, and they asked Mitch Payton, like, what are your thoughts on what this new Kawasaki is going to be? Do you want it to be fuel injected? Do you want it to be carbureted? And he was like leaning toward carbureted still. He's like, I think as far as, and I don't think I got this wrong because I was mostly paying attention, but basically saying he felt like carbureted two stroke at this point still has more performance capability than a fuel injected. I don't, who am I to question him? So, um, who knows what it'll be?
with the right kind of fuel injection system, with the right ECU, and with the right testing, I think that EFI could probably be great. But the carburetors just give a two-stroke right now, I think, a better oomph. You get better acceleration out of it, in my opinion. And it's just my opinion. It's not gospel. I mean, I'm not the end all be all. Um, you know, Cody, we're going to transition to our next topic, and that's Joe. You have a video out, and it's the Ultimate Sport Quad video. And Cody, I want your opinion before we get to dive into this too far as the difference between a chain-driven sport quad like a Raptor 700 versus the belt 4x4 machines. Can they be sport quads? Should they be considered sport quads? And what are your thoughts on this?
Oh, what's the question again? I get what we're talking about. What's the question?
Well, can the 4x4 belt quad be a sport quad?
I mean, you can race them. You can race them and go pretty fast on them. They're not. I mean, I think you got to have a difference in definition just between the four-wheel drive and the two-wheel drive. Just what it takes to be each one. I think it's good that you have the 4x4 Pro class, and it's good that you have the XC1, the Sport Quad Pro class, and there is a definitive line there. They're different machines. They're made for different purposes. They do different things on the race course. They definitely have their pros and cons. I don't think they should be one the same by any means, because you'll just you won't be able to compete at the highest level unless they allowed both. But then you'll run into events where it's like, either everybody in that pro class is running the sport quad because you're racing in Florida, and if you race the 4x4, you're just going to lose, just because of how the track is limiting to the different machines. But then you could get to an event like Snowshoe, and it just rained 3.5 feet the previous 2 weeks, and it's just been a monsoon, and so everybody's going to be on a 4x4, right? So they're different machines that have their different purposes, and they're just different disciplines in our sport.
But can we call it a sport quad?
I mean, what's your definition of sport quad? Where are we defining a sport quad?
I'm not. I'm vague.
Very vague. Very vague. I think we're being vague, no. But if you're trying to just be like, if you're saying sport quads, like, are they raceable? Can you compete against other people around your level on one? If they're on a traditional sport quad, absolutely. I went down to a local, 2 weeks ago, I won the overall by over 10 minutes on the 4x4 against all other sport quads, and people were looking at me sideways for being on the 4x4 on the front line. So always like doing well when that's kind of the vibe in an area, and reestablishing that culture that you can race these things at a high level. And then this past weekend, Mr. Wyatt Wilkins showed up and put the hurting on us. And it was a sport quad friendly track, within one of those tracks like I was just talking about. If you had the option to race them, you're going to be on the sport quad. But still went out there and got second in pro and third overall. So
well, that's kind of you're kind of answering the question. Joe, why don't you get into the video a little bit and talk about it from your perspective?
Well, the whole point of the video was kind of like, and we kind of hit it at the very beginning. We used to have we used to say sport quad. That meant clutch, gearbox, chain, two-wheel drive. I think we got to sort of rethink, it's not just like a sport quad isn't just a sport quad anymore, and that's kind of the way we looked at this because, the Raptor 700 is and you could see it in the comments from the video. A lot of guys are like, there's only one. We did Raptor, Scrambler S, and Renegade. So you got the Raptor 700. Everybody knows what it is. You got the Renegade 1000. It's the machine that wins the Pro 4x4 class every year. In the trees, it's the fastest 4x4. There's no debating it. And then you've got the Scrambler S, which is this kind of like it's a wild bike. It's 55 inches wide. It's way bigger than any ATV that's been in the United States really before. It's got as much or more suspension travel than a dirt bike. It's got as much ground clearance as a side-by-side. It's got the seat height of a dirt bike. People get on that bike and they're like, man, this thing's so tall. I just don't know. And then, you go out on a big wide open field track or a desert, big, whooped out desert loop, or, we shot one 2 years ago on a side-by-side short course. And you're all of a sudden, the riders get off of it and they're like, I can't believe how much fun this thing is. I can't believe how good it handles. The suspension is incredible. So the bottom line is, you got three different machines that really, it's almost like what Cody's saying. Like they all do something different well. The Raptor, obviously, least expensive to buy, least expensive to modify. It's roughly a 400-pound machine, give or take, add 20 pounds, roughly 420 with fuel. It's very light, nimble, flexible. When you ride a light sport ATV, your weight has a real impact on the bike. Like the lighter the bike, the more control the rider has with his weight. The heavier the bike, the less your body position is going to matter. It's still going to matter a lot. Don't get me wrong. But, once you get to that 55-inch wide Scrambler compared to, say, the Renegade 1000, like watch the video of Cody that we did. Like he's all over that thing, and sometimes he's on two wheels and it's nothing to him. You couldn't take the Scrambler where he took it, but you can almost sit in the middle of the bike and haul ass without jockeying quite so much. So very different price points. They shine in very different areas, but yet somehow, they're all very sporty. They're all very fun. And we kind of look at it like a guy who doesn't know might be looking at all three of these things. If you're not like us and, me and you, Lenny, we're like, we've been around since there wasn't really a sport 4x4 or maybe you're stuck in that two-wheel drive sport quad mentality. Like all three of these machines are so fun. They're so good in their own way. And, we just wanted to kind of bring them together, do a few different things with them, see how they compared in speed. We did like a wide open field time test. We did a bunch of drag racing, went in the woods and did a timed trail loop. Admittedly, we tweaked the Scrambler because this was an ATV park more than a side-by-side park. So the trails weren't all blown out 74, 78 inches wide. They were quad trails, and that Scrambler's a little big. So we tweaked it. It didn't get to do the cross-country race at the end ended up between the Raptor and the Renegade, but we had a lot of fun doing it. It's about a 40-minute video. I think it's pretty fun to watch. I did get feedback from Yamaha, and I have a tendency to make Yamaha kind of stress. A few years ago, we said we're going to do Raptor versus YFZ, and they're like, "Why do you want to do that? Do you want to say one of our quads is better than the other?" I'm like, "No, I want to let people know these things are so different. They're not the same bike just because it's a similar configuration. They're very different. We want to compare and contrast them in a fair way so that we help the buyer get the right bike." Um, and that's one thing that, especially with if you're going to do a non-in-class shootout, because we don't have 3 sport quads to shoot out, traditional 2-wheel drive sport quads to shoot out now. So it's not like a winner loser kind of deal. It's like, here's the experience. What are you looking for? Pick the one that fits you best. And when we did the YFZ Raptor shootout, Yamaha was apprehensive, and almost 3 million views later, they're very happy with it, as they should be. And my buddy at Yamaha was like, "I was apprehensive when you said you were going to do this, but having watched it, I can't believe how well the Raptor did. Like, I didn't know how it was going to go for us." And I'm like, "Well, did I make either of those other 2 brands look bad?" He's like, "Not at all. Like, no, like it wasn't." So, yeah, I mean, ATVs are fun, and I don't I don't love one and hate one. I think all different classes are fun. I think we need more sport quads, but I think the Renegade needs a competitor, and so let's have more of all of it.
Well, I think there's the 450 Yamaha, the 700 Raptor. They both need competitors. The Renegade needs a competitor. I don't. I don't think that you can call sport or non-sport. I rode the Gen 3 Can-Am in utility version, and I liked it. I thought the machine handled really cool. It was a lot of fun. I mean, I'm thinking when I go there that I'm going to be riding this tank, and it's nimble, it accelerates, it jumps, it does everything you want it to do. Same thing on a sport quad. Does all the same stuff. Maybe not quite as fast. Maybe it doesn't drift the same way through the turns, or maybe I just didn't have the skill to get it to drift through the turns the same way. Who knows? But you watch Cody ride it, and he's doing all the things that you can do on a traditional sport quad on his 4x4 and making it look easy.
And there's some truth to that. And Cody and me, I don't know what it's kind of like. He can shoot me down on anything I'm about to say. That's fine. I'll stand behind it, but he's a better rider than me, so take it for what it's worth. The Renegade is an incredible woods machine or fast machine in the fields. Now, where we did our comparison, we had to give some contrasting, because we did a field test and the Raptor or the Renegade beat the Scrambler S. I'm gonna let people go watch it and see who won what, and try not to give too much away, because I'd rather just people go watch it if they haven't. But the in the field, the Renegade beat the Scrambler S, in spite of the Scrambler S being so wide, because and you'll see how the Raptor fared and all that if you watch it. But the Renegade is not wide. It's 48 inches wide. It's not a super long travel bike, and it's very fast in tight situations. It's fast in wide open sections. It did beat the Scrambler in the field, but the field was very smooth. It was more like a field here on the East Coast, and we had to contrast it and say, had our field track been whooped out like where we originally tested it in the desert, whenever you add whoops in, the Renegade kind of comes unglued. I'm sure it's better with the aftermarket shocks like what Cody has, but that bike just doesn't lend itself well to pounding deep whoops at speed. It doesn't like to get on top of them. It doesn't have the wheelbase. It doesn't have the travel. It's just, where does it shine? And it's heavy. Like, I would think the Raptor in that situation would probably fare better than the Renegade. Could it hang with that 14-inch travel Scrambler S? I don't know. If our field track had been whooped out, the Scrambler would have, I believe, in my opinion, walked all over the Renegade. It just has wheelbase travel width. Again, the Renegade has an area where it shines. not super high speed whoops. Cody, what do you think? You've ridden that.
Yeah, I haven't gotten to ride a scrambler, but it's on paper. So you sound right on the money, dude. The Renegade out in the field doesn't handle the field bad. Just that scrambler being that 55-inch wide platform would it makes sense that would be able to handle it better. Yeah, I mean, if you're having a lot of chicane back and forth corners out in your field section, and that Renegade, you're able to just get that Renegade to pivot and bounce, and you're not doing any real tipping. You're just able to keep it planted and keep it rolling. Absolutely, I know how good of a forward drive that Renegade gets versus the Sportsman. All that good stuff. The Sportsman's only really redeeming qualities are that suspension travel like you're talking about and the trail width. The Renegade stock suspension leaves a lot to be wanted for a racing platform, but the Scrambler stock suspension seems like it's made to go beat your brains out in the Baja.
Right, and it excels there. I mean, like if you rode, I mean, you've got a YFZR, right, in your fleet?
Yes, sir. 450, not the 700 though.
Right, but I mean, if you had your custom access outfitted Renegade 1000 next to a custom access outfitted YFZ 450R, I would think in deep whoops the 450 is going to run away.
Yeah, you're going to have more bike control, and you're going to be able to when that rear end starts kicking or the front end starts walking, you're going to be able to keep it level better on the 450. But there's so many pros and cons. There's so many pros and cons. The 4x4s with all of their weight do really well in like small chop. So like before it becomes like, I guess when it's still chopping, it doesn't quite become whoops. I'd say the 4x4 is almost better just because of its weight and to stay planted. But once it starts crossing over to, okay, now it's deep enough and sketchy enough, now we can start calling these like actual whoops, then the ability to keep the bike as level as you wanted, you would want the Sport Quad more in those situations.
I agree with that.
Sorry, Lynn.
No, it's okay. I was just saying I agree with that. I do have a question though. So, granted, you are one of the top riders, if not in the category of 2 or 3 best 4x4 riders in the world. When you ride that through the whoops, the way that I've seen you ride, you can keep that on top for the most part. Is it technique, suspension, or power that's allowing you to do that, or are you just crazy?
Some combination. I was going to say some combination of the 3, but I'm going to say some combination of the 4. But yeah, no, man, it's just that's I don't know. It might become my slogan or something. But you're limited to your knowledge. Like if you don't understand how deep the whoop is, the angle that you're hitting the whoop, the angle that whoop's going to try to kick you back, how much tire spin, like we watch the whoop sections in the Supercross all the time. Do you have too much top wheel spin off your driving tires on that whoop? Are you going to spin and your front going to dive? Or are you getting the perfect amount of drive that you're going to hit it level and do the front tire tap and have the perfect form? Or are you going to get too much traction? Now your front tires are going to miss and you're going to dive into the next one. So that tire spins, it's the same concepts at play. How good your tire spin to keep you level? Are you able to adjust your bike based on how you get kicked on the previous one? Are you able to adjust to recenter for the next one? How well can you stay ahead of the forces going on?
Joe mentioned body English earlier in the conversation about these machines, and I've watched you ride. Do you think body English plays as much of a part on your 4x4 as it does your 450?
Yeah, yes and no. Like, yes and no. I'd say more so yes than no. You guys be able to stay ahead of that force. So, like, you'll see a lot of the problems people on 4x4s, they're like, oh, I don't need to lean so much for this corner. And then they'll kind of half lean, and like the quad and the bike will tip, and they'll get pushed off the side of the bike. Like you'll see them tip with the bike instead of them being able to counter lean and stay into the throttle. If their positioning, the body positioning, if they could keep their center of gravity, on the other side of that tip, they can stay in the throttle and stay in control of the machine a lot better. But like there's the square of your shoulders, you allow that to the push your tit to get behind it instead of keeping your shoulders square on top of the bike, letting the bike have that camber and staying ahead of the force. So I say you can get it's more about keeping your body in the right positioning from getting tipped on the 4x4. Then on the 450, it's more like throwing your body weight to keep the 450 planted and ignoring the stuff that should be kicking you.
Understood.
And one thing I was pointing out, Lenny, was like, you know, if you're a, you know, okay, I'll just go with like somebody about my size. If you're a 200-pound rider on a 400-pound machine and you're 15 degrees, 20 degrees off the side of the bike, you're going to have more leverage over the bike than if you're on a 700-pound machine, 800-pound machine, 900-pound machine at the same lean angle. But then again, like the scrambler is so wide, it's just more stable. You know, and that's one thing where like the Raptor and the Renegade, they're kind of different, but the Raptor is kind of like, here's the YFZ, here's the Renegade. And you kind of got this Raptor, it's kind of somewhere in the middle. Like it's a little narrower than the Renegade, but it's also a couple 100 pounds lighter. So they're just so different. They're just so different in the way you ride them. And the one thing I can tell you, everybody agreed on who participated in this, which was Aaron Meyer, who's been probably my first test rider ever. He used to race a little bit of pro stuff at the Nationals. He was a B and C champion, race A, race Pro-Am, very experienced rider, fastest guy, you know. We had him, Isaac Hart. He's going to race junior B class at the Nationals this year. And then Doug Couric. I don't remember what vet class he races, but you know, all three of the guys, like they liked all three bikes. They just had different kinds of fun on all of them. You know, and I think, yeah, sport, whether you're talking sport 4x4, they're all sport quads. They're just different.
Exactly. Everybody, I want to say thank you so much for spending the time with us. Remember, ATV Talk gives you 3 shows a week. We give you an audio show on Tuesdays at 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. You can catch us in a bench prep conversation live on Instagram. That's 6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. Remember, that's live on Instagram. And then we do the morning show at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, live on YouTube. We always have intriguing guests like Cody Collier. Joe Tolle is with me most of the time. He's with ATV On Demand. So if you haven't got your subscription to ATV On Demand, you need to run out and do that right now, as well as UTV On Demand. Like, share, and subscribe to ATV Talk where you can, please. And Cody Collier, good luck this year in Pro 4x4. We'll be watching, and we'll probably get you back on and get your opinion on how the season's going midway.
Oh, absolutely. No, thanks again for having me, Leonard. Great time. Yeah, if you guys haven't got to check out that ATV On Demand, my man Joe's page. Always doing great stuff for the sport and the culture. So go check it out. Got cool behind the scenes videos with myself writing and everything. We're getting ready to post another. I was able to be a test rider for him on another upcoming video, so be on the lookout for that. And yeah, no, Nationals are coming up. I feel great. I feel really good on the bike. Got a few blisters from yesterday, but felt great on and off the bike, and just excited for the year. 2 weeks can't come soon enough. Right
on. So just on that, so everybody knows, where are we racing?
We'll be GNCC, Grand National Cross Country Series, biggest off-road racing championship in the world. We're going to be racing our first round of the 2025 season here, February 15th. Down in Union, South Carolina, the Big Buck GNCC. So I'm going to be going after my third 4x4 Pro National Championship, and looking forward to it. Been training hard, been studying my film, been eating my Wheaties. I feel good.
That's good stuff, Cody. Joe, what about you, brother?
What do I have coming up? Well, I'm scripting right now a 200X vintage test video that we kind of promised the world years ago was coming, and the ball got dropped. There were some complications, but whatever. It's coming. It's a full build, a frame up build, swing arm, the suspension done, full motor kit. I mean, it's a kitchen sink 200X. If you're a vintage guy, you're going to like that. And then the next video that should be coming after that. We've got 3 4x4s here to test, just waiting for a little break in the weather. But the next thing that's filmed and in the can and ready to get produced after the 200X will be that video with Cody Collier. Him and his mechanic went out, and we compared the current Renegade, which is still on the Gen 2 platform from Can-Am, to the Gen 3 Outlander. Those guys were very honest and very frank about how they think they compare, what kind of changes they want to see going forward when this new Gen 3 Outlander platform kind of transitions into the Renegade. So hopefully we can get this out quick enough and Can-Am's paying attention. And yeah, it's good times. I mean, there's a new Renegade coming at some point.
No, there's a lot of it. You know, we're gonna be honest with you. No reason not to be at this point. So I always want to give you our honest thoughts on what's the goods and bads of the machine. There's definitely some definite things the machine's got to do just to take care of the consumer, take care of your customers. There's a few must-do things that we see in the video if you're going to bring that platform to your Renegade, your race platform. There's a lot of things. It's like, hey, if you guys care, these things should also be changed. There's some mandatory things on there, but there's also some things that's just like common sense. Yeah, and a lot of really good things as well. But the new platform, you're always going to have your hiccups, always going to have your bells and whistles. So hopefully, can use ours as a baseline on how to move forward.
Sounds great. Awesome, guys. I really appreciate it. Joe, you know what? Who we forgot? Dirt Wheels. You got to get your Dirt Wheels.
I subscribed. I got my first issue like a week or two ago. I got the buyer's guide issue, which as a young pup coming up, I used to always love the buyer's guide issue because that was a place where it's like I might see a machine that I hadn't seen before. So yeah, I got a new fresh subscription to Dirt Wheels. It's like Christmas.
So guys, get your there you go. Cody, I hope you got your subscription too.
My parents do. I haven't got since I got over the house. It's always good reading material when I go over there, though. I should probably get mine for my house.
You should. I got one for mine. Even though I get it at work, I got one for the house as well.
Fair enough.
Everybody have an amazing weekend. The rest of your Sunday. Thank you so much for being here, and we will catch you next time. Cody, as well. Thank you, brother. I'll be in contact. Joe, as always, have a great day, guys.
Nope. See you guys on the next one.
Good seeing you, Cody.